Aquarius and Aquarius. So, I am an Aquarius. My sun is in the house of Aquarius, which, according to my observations and studies, is the house placements I've found is just as influential as the seasonal placements. So, yes, my sun is in Gemini, born June 14th, but it's in the house of Aquarius. In any case, some of my best friends are also Aquarii, which is very often the case. And with these couple of, I would consider them brothers, really. And on a separate note, my mom is an Aquarius, as well as my father, my dad. And I would consider them also best friends. But anyways, I'm thinking of three individuals in particular that are Aquarii as well. And as I said, it's very often the case for Aquarius to be close with other Aquarius, because everyone is so focused on friendship and so out there and just innovative and so... When you have one Aquarius, it's an evolution. And again, I just want to preface this because there will be a lot of positive stuff being said about Aquarius, as well as challenging stuff, which we'll get to. But no, Aquarius is not better than any of the other signs. It's not really like Aquarius to think that way anyways, but in case anybody else is watching and they think I'm just waxing poetically about Aquarius like it's my favorite sign, no, I have no favorite sign. They're all important. But in any case, back to what we were saying. It's very often that Aquarians are friends, and also, which is so very often in this relationship, there's been a lot of coldness, a lot of distance between me and some of my, again, I'm focusing on three particular individuals, my brothers, and such distance, literally and figuratively. I don't want to get too personally involved, but just to offer up, basically, some personal experience. I was in a band with, really the first major band I was in, major in the sense, we never played any shows, we'd only recorded 8 songs, we spent most of our time jamming and rehearsing and creating and just enjoying ourselves with each other. But it was the first band that I was in that everyone was really committed and really had the long-term goal and vision in mind. And we were absolutely dedicated to each other from about June 30th, 2009, that date, I'll never forget that date, how special those experiences were, in which 2 of my best friends already, they were already really good friends of mine, and we had so much fun, just being ourselves around each other, and I had finally felt, I had a couple of childhood friends and whatnot, but we had all, honestly, all of us, even though we had our childhood friends and whatnot, we really connected with each other in ways that I can confidently say, because everyone of us has said it for many times since. We connected with each other in ways that we'd never experienced before, and quite frankly, have hardly experienced since, if at all, really. That being said, I've experienced some really beautiful friendships since then, and the other 2 guys are a bit more introverted, so it's not really their style to meet a bunch of people and to really include them in their lives in intimate ways, but even as special as my, actually, I'm in another band now, as well as my solo music stuff, as special as those guys are to me, and they are my brothers just as much. None of them are Aquarius, it's interesting to note, and I still, even though that previous band, the first one, has, I don't even want to say fallen apart, it's kind of just been put on the back burner. It's been launched into the void of Aquarian space because we're all focused on doing our own individualistic things in the meantime. I still love those guys dearly, and even though both of them are no longer where I live in my city, even though one of them had lived here for quite a while after our breaking up, which, by the way, I'd never mentioned that, which was, as a band, we broke up, or again, put things on the back burner, starting January 2013. So for a solid 3.5 years, we were together, and it's interesting to note, everything I was saying before, I was loyal and determined, and together we were. There's still very Aquarius of us, and it's beautiful that our relationships got past this and survived and even thrived in spite of this. But for the first year of that, I was off at college in a different city, not too far away, but still, far. And then that last 4 months or so, actually really 5 months, I was off studying in France, which is very far from where I live in Nevada. And but in any case, so really 2010, we were in the band during that entire time. We were all working as individuals towards the band, me more so than them, but that's okay. I have tons of Leo energy, that's who I am. From 2010 until August 2012, so a solid 2 years, which may not seem like a long time, but for us, we put in day after day after day after day of playing together and creating together and making this huge vision and just really just being best friends in all senses of the word. It was incredible. We were a team, which is so important for us Aquarians, is to find a common goal that is beyond the relationship. And for us, it was the band. It still is the band, really, even though we're all totally focused on different stuff, and it'll be many, many years, I think. Well, not that many, but a good probably 5 or 6 years, if it happens at all. I do think it will happen, I sense that, but it's going to take us a while. We all have to develop as individuals first, but yeah, not only did we have that overarching goal, we lived in the same room, which was quite small, actually, quite small room. We had a bunk bed, and then our other buddy had a loft, and I still have that bunk bed, and it was just such a special time, and the growth that we all experienced is so rich and so powerful that it changed all of our lives for forever, and it gave us a kind of stability and a love that we, not any three of us, had experienced in our entire childhood. And I'll just always look back on that time with fondness, and also with appreciation, with gratefulness of how much I developed as a person and how much I learned. And we all hashed out so much of our personal baggage with each other, whether as individuals with each other's support, which happened very often, I would say mostly often, but sometimes us just totally projecting our inner psychological hurt and coldness that we'd experienced in childhood, as very often is the case. In fact, is always present in some way, I find, in my studies, for us Aquarians. And I don't want to cover this too much. I've talked about this a lot. If you'd like to talk more or hear more about this, check out Sun in Aquarius conscious version. Unconscious, semi-conscious rather. That's a good video too, but the conscious version is really the one that I espouse and I recommend. But just to cover on that, just basically being an Aquarian is not an easy thing at all. Of all the sun signs, it's in detriment, and this doesn't mean it's bad at all. It doesn't mean it's bad, let alone the worst or anything. No, it just means that the sun, the astronomical body in our solar system, for God's sakes, the solar system, it's all based around the sun. The sun is 99.9% of all of. I don't know if that's size or mass. I should find that out. In any case, Google that for yourself if you're curious. But in any case, 99% of all astronomical bodies in our solar system, the sun comprises that. That is just insanely big. And the sun is only challenging in two signs, Libra and Aquarius. Now, again, there's vast beauties to this placement, including being able to be rebellious and to be unique and to think for yourself and to truly define your own standards and goals for life. And that goes for both signs, but especially for Aquarius, I find. Considering we're ruled in part by Uranus, that planet that is so much... There's some kind of collision far back in time in which the planet, instead of being upright for basically every single other planet in our solar system is more or less upright. We have some degree tiltage. For example, the Earth is about 23.5 degrees. But Uranus is like on its side, basically rolling through the solar system like this crazy top. And Uranus is said to only rule majorly Aquarius energy. So us Aquarians, we see things from a very different perspective. Quite literally, considering one of our ruling planets is on its side, for God's sakes. So, anyways, yeah, back to my point. But the challenging part of Aquarius very often manifests as a father figure who is completely absent, who has passed away, who is more of a friend than a father, in the sense that they're still there for you, at least in part, but they're more intent on being, they're just not emotionally capable, mentally capable, or physically capable of being much more than somebody in your life that you know that doesn't that just isn't there for you in the sense of guiding you, of you should do this and you should do that, and this is customary when you reach this age to do this, and you need to learn a responsibility and discipline, and you need there. It also manifests as the father existing, being out there and just not being there for you, or as I've said in many Aquarius videos, some kind of combination of these things. Now, I don't wish to generalize this, and I would also like to say this does not mean that being an Aquarius means you have a horrible relationship with your father. Your father's a terrible person. No, not at all, not at all. I actually have a very good, beautiful relationship with my father, who incidentally is also an Aquarius. A lot better relationship than he had with his dad, and I really love that man. He's a really beautiful man. But the truth is that he was only there for me for probably about a third of my adolescence, just because of how the time was split in the divorce. And for my buddies, again, I don't want to get too personal, but they also experience this void in their own ways. So my point is this: is you can be the beautiful with each other, this Aquarian friendship, partnership, romance even. You can be your crazy selves with each other. You can be the eccentric, mad genius, able to be totally different and weird and just be yourself and to be appreciated if the other person's in a really good place. Again, every relationship, doesn't matter what the sun signs are, relies on two individuals who are healthy psychologically, and able to give love as well as receive it. And both those are so important, especially with this relationship. You can project, especially between Aquarian men, I find, you can project that void with your father onto your friend so much. And every time I'm with an Aquarian buddy of mine, I'm conscious of doing this, and I have to really keep myself in check and not try and supplant my own father experiences with this other male Aquarian entity. And I think that's even more so because my dad actually is an Aquarius. But I think in general, really, and I've seen it with my other friends, there's been such projections, especially during those 2 years when we were hashing out our psychological experiences and all learning so much in the process, on all ends of the situations, how to be and how not to be. And I think that's really the biggest thing with this relationship I could tell you, is how to be your individualistic self and how not to be. Going back to the band situation, another big challenge for Aquarius is losing the identity in the group. And that happened. It very much happened for all three of us in our own ways. And a lot of projections can occur from that, in which you resent other people who are part of that group for not living up to your expectations of how they should be living up to. And for example, for me in the band, I just felt like we weren't productive enough. We weren't, I was perfectly capable and comfortable with playing shows. One of them was like, and the other was like, no. his son is in the House of Aquarius, but is a Scorpio, so, the stellium in Scorpio, so there you go. But it was also very much, I didn't push it too hard because I felt like we were all still developing, and I really enjoyed what we were doing. I didn't need to be playing live. As long as we were creating and moving ahead, that's all that mattered to me, and we were doing that, so I was comfortable with that. But in any case, I still overall I had so much music. I'm always creating music. And I had so much music that I needed to be working on, and they just were not keeping up fast enough with me. They were spending more time doing other stuff, and I instead of taking it upon myself to do what I needed to do, which became apparent later on when this band broke up and I was in the most difficult part of my life. I literally had more anxiety than ever. And for the first time, I think I felt like I really knew rock bottom in many ways. Because I just had to reinvent myself in so many ways. I had invested myself so much into this group and in music overall. So that's good. You know, find a group with your Aquarian friend that both of you are really into as individuals. So that you're not investing yourself simply in this new identity that isn't going to serve you in the long run. But in any case, during those 2 years, I should have been learning how to be a one-man band, which was my destiny. That's part of my musical. I need to have that so I can completely control that. My mind can completely go at 1,000,000 miles per hour and envision new sounds completely on my own. You know, it's like my own laboratory, my own experimental outlet. I need that so I can be in these 3 other projects that I'm in now, and I'm sure, you know, I'll be in another project or 2 later on in life. But at that time, I was so invested with that group, that identity, those guys, that I tried to cram all that music into one outlet, and it burned them out. That was definitely a factor in us breaking up as a band, putting it on the back burner, because we really never really broke up. It was just they needed to go do other things, and quite frankly, it was more often that, much more that predominantly, is as individuals they needed to do different things with their lives. They, as talented musically as they are, and I don't see myself as better than them in any sense. I really respect and love their musical prowess, but I am more into music than they are. I am more into every aspect of it than they are. And it's just a simple fact, and one that I ran away from. I tried to deny for so long. And one that that projection especially of, guys, we need to, I put a lot of stress and pressure on these guys, and I've apologized since then. Because even though overall I was, you know, happy, fun-loving Aquarius, and just like, yeah, alright, well, you know, you're doing good, let's just, you know, maybe work on this. I was never a dictator or anything. But I did, there's a lot of subconscious vibes I was putting out that were very unhealthy for everyone, including myself, but especially for the other guys. I really feel for them of how I put them in that position, and then I've learned from that, and hopefully from now on I'm doing my best, I know for sure. Hopefully I'll succeed in applying that for the long term. In fact, I would say I have up until this point. It's been a couple of years now too. In any case, projecting your own identity onto your partner, or the cause that you two are espousing, is the big challenge, one of the biggest for this relationship. And part of it comes from your own insecurities, your own fear. Again, that own void of not having a father figure to kind of, yes, it's annoying in the sense of somebody guiding you, like, okay, you should do this when you're at this age, and you should do this, and you should do that. And yes, it's annoying, especially for us Aquarians, but at the same time, it's really nice. It would have been really nice to have somebody to kind of show the way more, and to be more involved, and to be more, even if you rebelled completely against what they were saying you should do, it's nice to have somebody there to believe in you, and to be around, and to keep pushing you in healthy ways. And so, even though I got that in part from my father and my stepfather, I still very much felt that void. And during that time, I just didn't have the confidence. And I'm still struggling, not as much, not nearly as much, but I still have to remind myself sometimes, no, you can play the drums, you can play the bass. It's not like you can do this, you can do this. But especially then, even though I was still playing drums, I've played drums since I was like 15, played the bass since then as well, I still had this insecurity, this nagging insecurity, made all the more by and this is on me, this isn't on the other guys, my linking up my confidence, my competence, my idea of my competence at least, and my identity with this group, which incidentally was other Aquarii. And it was inconceivable to me. I literally had to be forced into that position of, no, you don't have a band anymore. You need to learn how to make your own music completely. I was forced in that position, and I find that so often the case with us, these Aquarian relationships, where you're forced to grow because we're so damn stubborn as Aquarians. Yes, we're air. Yes, we're forward thinking, and we're really in tune with ourselves in a lot of ways, especially mentally. But emotionally, we can really be lacking in understanding what we need. And I really needed to be able to play all the instruments myself and to guide the project myself. I had took the lead with our other band, but it was a collaborative effort, as it should have been, as bands should be, when it's involving other people. But I was so in denial about my own talent and my own needs, my own emotional needs, that instead of working hard to achieve my destiny consciously, I was doing it subconsciously. I was still playing drums, still playing bass, not as much, but still. Instead of doing that, instead of doing the healthy psychological pursuit, I was instead putting all this pressure on this situation. And I find that's so often the case in the Aquarian relationship, where, and we'll get to some other examples of, without getting too personal, I don't think the other guys would really mind, since it's for group wisdom, Aquarian pursuit, betterment of the collective. But so often in this relationship, I find, where you just, and this isn't inevitable, and I hope you learn from my mistakes, my difficulties with this, but I find it's very often where we project our inner void, our inner emotional dearth, and our inner emotional understanding. As genius we can be on the mental wavelengths, we can be so not genius when it comes to our emotions, especially younger in life, especially in that transitionary period of from teenage to young adult years, the early 20s. We can project that onto our Aquarian friends so much and give so much pressure and so much self-denial projected that it just leads to a tipping point where finally the other person says, enough, I'm done. No, I'm done. And again, there were other factors to that band dissolving, but I really do, I mean, it's interesting to note, and I think it says a lot about the situation before it dissolved, before I went off to France, and I think it says a lot about the situation that I finally embraced my destiny after they left, and I finally consciously said, okay, I can do this, I need to do this, I will do this. I'm going to become a master at the drums and the bass and extend my musical prowess. It took a tipping point. It took them acting out Uranus's energy of being so sudden, and at the time it felt truly like an earthquake was occurring. I just remember when one of them told me while I was over in France that he needed to go back to our hometown of Vegas. He needed to be with his family. And the other told me right after I got back, like I literally was in town in Reno. I just remember shaking. Of just like, what the fuck? What's going on? And that's so, but looking back, it was so inevitable. It really was inevitable, not just for where they were as individuals in their lives and what they needed, but also where I was in my life. I finally had been put in a position because I just was not conscious enough to put myself in this position, unfortunately. The external circumstances, my Aquarian brothers, put me in this position where I was forced to deal with the reality that I needed to have a band that was my own outlet. And so I urge you in this relationship to not, first of all, to not project. I mean, it's important not to project in whatever relationship, but it's so easy in this relationship to project and to, it's easy in any relationship between two sun signs of the same energy, but especially with this one, because we think we're so individualistic, but then we find ourselves linking up our identity with our friends, with organizations that may be worthwhile, may not be, but in any case, it's still an unhealthy linkage of our fulfillment with the whole. We need to do that as per humanity, the massive collective, the ultimate collective. And I guess the ultimate collective is all life in the universe, but it's a bit bit out of our reach at this point on Earth, even for us Aquarians. Beyond ideas and psychic senses and whatever. But it's really important to develop as an individual truly, and to not just have it in your mind, but to live it. And I would have been the first to say back then, like, yeah, I'm totally living up my potential as an individual. And in one sense, it was true. I was growing as a musician more than ever, and as a person more than ever, with my beautiful brothers by my side, and all of us were growing in those ways together more than ever. But I still was ignorant, and I was scared of the truth, that I needed to define my own thing, my own outlet. And whatever that outlet is for you, I very much urge you to be conscious of this, because it's going to play out with this relationship, and I just hope you avoid the kind of pain and loneliness I felt when it all fell apart, and the misunderstanding of what the hell was that all about, and not realizing that I had created those circumstances, as we create all the circumstances in our life, no matter what our sun sign is. But it's so easy for us Aquarians to lose sight of we have the big picture, the broader picture, you know, of, yeah, okay, for example, with my case, I'm supposed to play music. It's how I contribute to the collective. But I was missing out on the key details. I'm a goddamn Gemini with Mercury in Gemini, you know, all in the house of Aquarius, but I'm supposed, in some ways, I'm the best with details, but I just, you know, I was projecting so much, and I was not taking care of my own needs so much that I just had worked myself into a rut. And that's the irony, and that's the Saturn part of us being Aquarians, because Saturn and Uranus are said to both rule Aquarius. And all of us really had worked ourselves into such a rut that it just it needed breaking out of, and I'm so thankful that it did. So thankful. It allowed all these other opportunities to finally happen. It was almost like a dam had been finally broken. And even though it needed to exist for that period of time, and it was very useful and it was helpful, that water needed to flow. And eventually it did. So, going back to just something that comes to mind is actually we have a fourth Aquarian brother who's even more Aquarius in many ways. While we were all living together, he was off living on his own, but he was still just as much part of our brotherhood. He hadn't done the work necessary. He's I don't know. There's a lot of challenges that he's going through, and that void that he's experiencing that he hasn't even come close, quite frankly. And I love that boy. I love that man. He's an amazing human being, but in so many ways he just hasn't even come close to what we've accomplished, the three of us. Not just musically, unfortunately, but just with understanding himself. And he'll get there. I'm confident he will, but that's another factor of why this is taking so long. And indeed, that was a factor of why it fell apart as well. It's just we didn't have our fourth leg. You know, we were a triangle, and I always felt, all of us, in our own way, always felt we were a pyramid, even though I felt it the most. We were a pyramid, and we were supposed to meet at the point, and it just wasn't the right time. And that's another factor, is time. For Aquarians and Capricorns, life gets infinitely better as we get older. And yes, that's very true for all signs in their own way. But for Capricorn and Aquarius especially, we have such pressure when we're younger. We face such difficulties. And especially with us Aquarians having that void. Learning who we are can take a very long time. And learning what our life's about can take a very long time. And we try and supplement, we try and substitute with identities, and a common thing is science, or another common thing is music, psychology, whatever else. We try and fill that void when we're younger, very often. And eventually we just gotta realize we have to be at peace with the void, and that it's a beautiful thing. to be an Aquarius, to be any sign, but especially with that void, that coldness, that detachment. It's who we are. And there are beautiful things, again, about that energy, about that experience, that human experience, that just aren't possible with any other sun sign. So I'm patient. I have all the hopes in the universe that the four of us will come together. That my three brothers come together, that we'll all, I mean, I feel good about myself, quite frankly, but that we'll all figure out who we are. And I would say that two of us out of those four really have our shit together. And just quite frankly, with my blunt Aquarian truth analysis, the other two have some ways to go. And it is going to take a couple of years. And actually, it's funny that they're moving away from, they were living here in Reno with me. Not literally with me in my house, but very close. And we had hung out so many times. And our friendship had continued to grow. Just as our friendship had continued to grow with our Vegas brother, who I saw when I went to go back and visit family. So these friendships are still there. And that's one of the beautiful things about Aquarius, is even when we have complete misunderstandings or completely, it's not even so much misunderstandings, but we see things from a different way. We're so goddamn stubborn about our perspectives, us Aquarians. We still have love for each other, and we realize that the bigger issues, not even the bigger issues, the bigger picture matters. And that is not just humanity, not just goodwill for all and tolerance and love for all, but those bonds that are unbreakable, that are forged in the void, which other people just don't understand. And that's part of the thing here is, you know, when we were together, so many people just didn't understand us, and it was awesome, quite frankly. Not that we tried to not be understood, but we were just on our own wavelength, and it was so much fun and it was so magical. And I can't wait for that to come back together in the future as time moves on and we all grow and life gets better because we become more wise. And that Saturnian aspect of our being is given the chance to show its power, our discipline, the discipline of an Aquarius or a Capricorn for that matter, because of Saturn's influence, is so great. And especially when you get Aquarians together, what they build together lasts. And the music that we created, as I said, we made an album of 8 songs, and we'd been working on plenty of other songs. That album will definitely see the light of day. I hope it's the four of us together. If it becomes apparent that they're just not able to do that music justice, then I'll put it out myself, because that music needs to be heard. But it's still all these years later, even though it was created some very learning, some periods of learning in our lives, of growth, and where we were discovering ourselves. And one of us, one of my brothers actually, had come out as gay during that time. So it was an extremely formative time for all of us. My other brother was learning how to emotionally express himself and to be vulnerable and to be real at his core, which, considering what I told you, what I had learned, my other brother and our other brother too, it wasn't here, but still was just much a part of the process later on, and has always been a really great friend to all of us, and just a really loving, lovely human being. We all grew so much, and I'm so excited to see how we grow in the future. Our experiences with each other, even though 2 of my brothers now live in Oregon, 1 lives in Vegas, and here I am in Reno, our bonds are stronger than ever, ironically. And it's funny because just recently we had this pretty big Uranian, in which, it's funny, I never really thought of it like this, but it was me on the other side, where I was the one going, guys, this is bullshit. And it was, I don't want to get too personal, but essentially it was about one person's a bond that they had in their life, that not convinced of the healthiness of that bond, and especially how it was born. It just and with the other, just some harsh truths that they were running from, but they really wanted, actually. But in any case, they reacted and attacked me for. So both of them basically were projecting onto me. It was very much roles reversed in some ways. And I love them, and I told them that, but I also completely called them out on their bullshit. And we are on very different pages right now. Me and my Vegas brother are like this. We're awesome. And you know what? On the deeper levels, me and my other now Oregonian brothers, we're tighter than ever, like I was saying. And that's one of the beautiful things about this relationship is no matter how challenging it can get, no matter how much you project, no matter how much you can get stuck in a rut, eventually Uranus is going to say, all right, fuck it. And the truth comes. And what's beautiful is, whereas with relationships with other sun signs, when that Uranian jolt happens, because it's inevitable with us Aquarians, we refuse to let untruth masquerade as the truth. And especially with other Aquarians, when that Uranian bolt happens with other sun signs, it's very possible that relationship, that friendship, whatever, fades for forever, because that person just was not ready for that truth, or that it takes a very, very long time for that person to realize that the Aquarius was coming from a good place, and they did have points. If not, they were totally right. And then like, hey, I'm sorry about that thing about 8 years ago and how I said that you're an asshole, but you're actually right. With Aquarians, yes, time is a factor. It takes us a long time to manifest our vision, to manifest our dreams, to manifest the change that we wish to see in the world. It can take a very, very, very long time. But with other Aquarians, when that Aquarian jolt, that Uranian jolt of truth happens, and it's really an evolutionary leap, whether it's comfortable or not, there's still an underlying strength there. That underlying bond of, you are still my brother, you are still my sister, and I still love you, even if I don't like you. And I still will be there for you when, push comes to shove. And that's how it is. So I hope, for the world's sake, and for their sake, I hope the four of us come back together, probably 4 or 5 years from now, when Saturn is in Capricorn, even more fittingly in Aquarius, and we're all having our Saturn returns, hitting 30. I hope. I can't force them. They're stubborn Aquarians. I wouldn't want to force them if I could. And that's always been a part of our bond, as unique and strange and weird and as projecting as we can be with each other, we are all still together. Even if we're not physically together, we're all still together. So, I honor this bond. It's so beautiful. It's so important. And seen in the bigger picture of the cosmological age of Aquarius, which is the next 2,000 years that we're already experiencing with social media and technology and human rights and human dignity being finally becoming at the forefront, and with the increase of culture and international understanding and music and arts and creativity. That's more the partner sign of Leo, but that's still very much Aquarius. This bond is so much vaster than just two individuals. It really does connect to so many people, and I think that's why really it's going to take us so much time, because I'm ready for this. I was born ready for this, quite frankly. I needed time to develop, but still, I love doing this, for example, just voicing my perspective on things, and making music for the world. I mean, that's always been my ambition, and it's not about fame or fortune. I don't give a shit about that stuff. I just want to reach people. I want to connect people together, and I want to connect with them. And I just think that's one of the most beautiful, sacred things possibly I could ever experience, and that humanity could experience. It's just that union that happens with music, art in general, but especially music and concerts. And I know that my three brothers feel the exact same way. They're just not quite ready for that. Two of them more so than another, who will probably be my touring bassist for my my solo thing. But it's the Aquarian's destiny to reach people on a massive scale, and it's not about quantity; it's about quality. So it's important to keep that in mind. It's not like we all have to be on the world stage, for example, but It is the Aquarian societal need to contribute that is so beautiful as an individual, but with another Aquarius, let alone a couple other Aquarians, you're capable of so much more than you realize. So invest in yourself first and foremost, in your individual journey. Don't link up your identity with your friend or with that group, whatever it may be, no matter how worthwhile it may be. Because it was worthwhile, quite frankly, in my experiences, but you gotta focus on yourself as an individual first. Everything else will fall into place. And you gotta be patient, okay? It's gonna take time. It really is. And this relationship will get so much better as time goes on and so much deeper and amazing. But let it take time. And have fun exploring. Me and my two brothers in particular, we had a lot of psychedelic trips together that were just incredible and just truly life-changing. It was so beautiful. And whether you're into psychedelics or not, whether you feel it's good for you or not, then if not that, then have other outlets of exploring life and just embracing it together, because you're so capable of exploring brand new vistas of understanding and tolerance, and together it's just, it becomes so much more concrete in yourself and in the world. So have fun, really have fun. This is such a beautiful relationship. Infinite love to you. Namaste. I'm hungry. All right, see ya.